System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Friday, August 15th. I am Amin TMK alongside Emoja, Lil Tanky, Sumler. Emoja, hello. Happy Friday. How are you doing?
Man, what's good?
What's happening? Let's dive into some politics, some geopolitics, can we?
Let's do it, man.
I like when we do that. You guys may know this. I'm a big Claudia Scheinbaum fan. Big fan of, Caribbean, Central America, South America doing their own thing, being allowed to do that. But unfortunately, we live here in the United States, they always have to utilize military force to destabilize countries, to get up in their business. So breaking news, this is from Megatron. Donald Trump is sending warships and air forces to target Latin American drug cartels per Reuters. The main targets are Mexico and Venezuela. Interesting two choices that those are the number one and number two. The U.S. is sending air and naval forces to Southern Caribbean to target Latin American drug cartels labeled as global terrorist groups. The U.S. military has already been increasing its airborne surveillance of Mexican drug cartels to collect intelligence to determine how to best counter those activities. My friend, we watch Narcos. We know the game. We've seen this before. What does this mean? What are your thoughts on this? Trump, potentially going in there, getting people's sovereignty.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing. The first argument is sovereignty, and you can't get away from that. What the United States does in the borders of the United States is the province of the United States. But when you're talking about deploying warships, right, you're not talking about defending the United States. And again, it's always interesting to watch how they frame this around drug cartels. You know what I'm saying? Like, was the Sackler family a cartel? I mean, who moved more fucking ghetto dope than them, and those things never happen. I will also remind you all, most of our listeners are quite savvy. The United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio put out a $50 million bounty against Nicolas Maduro and said that he is a international narco terrorist, right? So in some ways, they're softballing an invasion of Venezuela under the auspices of stopping. Okay, so like that's the next thing that we have to look at, right? That'll become a pressure point if that happens. That they will have created a landing point in South America to put additional pressure on anyone who's thinking about BRICS, joining BRICS. It's a warning to Brazil that we have the North and we have the South with Argentina. It's a warning to Peru, all of the countries that are doing business with China. It's a warning to Scheinbaum. Don't get too close to any. To me, I see it as nothing more than a naked attempt to create a premise to attack BRICS nations and BRICS leaning nations. Again, who even knows what war in South America would look like real war, the United States. Who knows what the Venezuelan capability for response is? To me, it looks a little bit more like the Israeli way, right? Like hopefully they can get a little decapitation strike, slide Juan Guaido version, whatever. And he be the new recognized,
I think he'll quit his job at the Florida International College,
right,
maybe to come back as his rightful place as the president.
Right. And the dude that just recently lost in the vote with Maduro, who went to Spain immediately, right? He didn't stay in the country, try to make it better. I mean, hell, this is worse than Kamala.
He said Israel had a right to defend itself. Right. On the election day, while Nicolas Maduro was out there throwing the peace sign saying free Palestine.
You know what I'm saying?
Maybe he's the bad guy, the guy that's saying free Palestine, and the Israeli guy's the good guy. I don't know.
I think another thing
true at once.
Right. I think another thing that's worth talking about is the concept of sovereignty in and of itself as it relates to drug laws, right? I thought it was always an overreach when the DEA had presence in other countries, which again served to further destabilize them. You know, you can look at the DEA's role in Colombia and how it led to the radicalization, creation of FARC, and all of the the rise, okay, of Pablo Neruda, little guy. Oh wow, not Pablo
Escobar.
Neruda.
You're a poet. I get it. You're a
Pablo
poet, and
Escobar.
I understand.
Who knows? But
Lots
again,
of good
right,
Pablos.
right. And the only thing I could joke about as it relates to all of this is think about, this year we've seen Macron and Starmer and Merz tooting and Rudy. You know what I'm saying? There's been allegations for years about Zelensky's proclivity to play in the snow. His last couple of meetings wasn't looking good. Maybe it's just stress, maybe tweaked out. I don't know.
Do you want to build a snowman?
So once again, right, we're talking about something where clearly it's the West that has an appetite for these type of substances, and yet they want to militarily punish countries that may or may not produce these things. And lastly, I'll just say, fuck, man, if Colombia made cocaine legal tomorrow, then the United States would have no jurisdiction there. You can't apply United States law on other sovereign countries. If Venezuela want to make cocaine legal tomorrow, right? So even if there was an epidemic in these countries, which who knows, right? It's not the United States' place. They don't have, there's no UN mandate, So once again, it just goes back to the axiom of the United States takes what it can. And it looks like they're prepared to take. It looks like they're here to claim this entire hemisphere at the very least, while, who even knows what's being chopped up in Anchorage right now and, in Alaska between Putin and Trump. But I think in no small part, once again, it's the sphere of influences, right? It's this is my sphere. This is your sphere. Near shall the two, come across each other. And I think that's going to be more the Russian point of view, because the Americans still don't accept the reality of a multipolar world. They see the world as their sphere. And there's no further indication of that than looking at how the United States provoked India and Pakistan and then provoked the Taiwanese military in Cambodia, only to slide in and be like, oh, look, I'm stopping the wars. Give me a peace prize, right? They've stoked this tension between Armenia and Azerbaijan, right? Those are traditionally considered Iranian sphere of influences, or at the very least Russian. They definitely weren't American. These people have no colonial ties to America, no cultural ties, right? So, why would the Americans be there? And the South American gambit is much more of the same. There's no real reason for the United States military to be flexing in the Caribbean. There's no real threat. And this is not the way you would deal with a drug epidemic anyway. So,
yeah, not to mention, there was conversation about Colombia decriminalizing, coca leaf, just simply because, of things like this, the overreach. And the United States has a very storied history in Central and South America and the Caribbean included, destabilizing governments, pulling coups. The richest man on the planet said, we'll coup whoever we want. Let's not forget that was in response to Bolivia's election, fair and free election, which the United States does not care about. And if you are wondering why, how about old Donnie Trump, Don Biden, he was the one out here being and moaning about Bolsonaro. Oh, Bolsonaro was treated poorly. He lost, dude. He lost, and he is
after
culpable.
Leading a coup and trying to assassinate Lula. I just got to add.
Don't get mad at him.
For everybody that doesn't have the full context, in the last Brazilian election, Bolsonaro staged a January 6th type event where he refused to concede the fact that he had been lost and actually utilized members in the military to try to capture and or kill the current president, the one who had won the election, Lula. So
yeah. So yeah, full context there.
look the other way, man. It's not he didn't win, he didn't succeed. Why, you're tripping,
man. I think there could be a reason for a place like Mexico being under the ire of the United States right now. Let's talk about this. This is from Res is Res. 13.4 million Mexicans lifted. 13.4 million Mexicans lifted out of poverty. New official data shows drop in poverty from 41.9 in 2008 to 29.6 in 2024. This monumental achievement in the midst of the COVID economic crisis explains the success and popularity of Mexico's fourth transformation. There is all this stuff I hear all the time, Tanky, and I'm always being emotive to you about it. And I'm a big Claudia Sheinbaum fan, because when I look at the receipts, when I look at the proof, which is in the pudding right here, this is what I see. I see the average Mexican able to have more upward mobility. I'm seeing national responses to hurricanes, people being moved out of the Yucatan Peninsula, put in temporary housing to make sure that they were safe. Oh, but what happened here in North Carolina? I don't know if you would remember, you had no fly zones, so drones couldn't take images of all the destroyed houses. You have her in indigenous communities working with indigenous folks in Mexico, Afro-Mexicans dealing with them as well. These are the things that I'm seeing from Claudia Sheinbaum, showing bringing the ambassador for Palestine to the country and meeting with her. So these are just some of the things that I see from Claudia Sheinbaum, and I'm wondering, maybe you can help me out here, if maybe these are some of the reasons why the United States is kind of focusing on her and these things that she's able to accomplish, along with, of course, the Mexican people and the Mexican government.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to an important transformation that America went through in the 90s. While there was a Cold War, there was still the impetus on the United States to at least play like American culture is more of a safety net. There was an American dream. There was a way forward. I mean, you could even see it in the sitcoms. Everybody's got 2 cars. Maybe only dad's working. They own the house. After the Cold War abated, once the Americans won, there was no longer a need to pretend, right? And the United States cut off its last vestiges of being, and please do not misunderstand this word, a welfare state, which is a country that is at least nominally arranged upon what are the services it can provide for its people. And it became an overt warfare state, always ready. And this predates 9/11. You know what I'm saying? Never forget that Bill Clinton's carnivore program was reading 3 million emails a second in the 90s. Again, there was not even a 9/11. There was no need for any of this type of overreach. It was just the gloves were off, and that's where we were. That's what has happened. When you look at what's happening with Mexico, this is not a place that's involved in wars, right? So the country can once again act as a welfare state and look to economic policy that buoys, right, the population as opposed to just the oligarchic class, which has been Mexico's reality for quite some time. Everything that the United States brings home to try out and try to bring first. Mexico had been run by the oligarchs for quite some time, up to and including the cartels, if you want to look at it in that way. Never forget that Vicente Fox was the CEO of Pepsi, of Coca-Cola, before he became the president, right, of Mexico, right? So when you have someone like a Sheinbaum who is prioritizing the needs of the people, that in and of itself, so close to the American home, embarrasses the United States for several reasons. One, it shows what they're not doing. Two, it destroys the great mythology that Mexico is this backwards, undeveloped place where crime is rampant in the streets and everyone's poor. It's destroying those things. And let's not underlook the fact that Trump has a very serious problem with any woman who does not kiss his ass. You know what I'm saying? A woman who is not interested in him, and really anyone, but specifically women, right? Who don't want to sleep with him or aggrandize him or play into his ego. And Sheinbaum has no interest in any of those things. She's pushing back against the narratives, the narco narratives, oh, look, all of the fentanyl. She's like, we don't have a fentanyl problem in Mexico, whatever our other problems are. Even the stupid Gulf of America thing, it's like, she's one of them people that don't just go along. She was supposed to go along with the whole Venezuela story. Wow, we stole the elections. Like, she took a stronger position to the left than Lula did. Never forget that. And with the relationship that Mexico has with China, and it's, I don't want to say reproachment because there was never any ill will, but it's how about this? Just even neutrality towards BRICS countries makes the United States begin to treat them hostilely, as if they are potentially an enemy. Because you cannot be nice to anyone that the United States has deemed is an enemy. For whatever reason, the United States deems them an enemy. Even if the United States deals with the enemy. I mean, you have no further to look than the United States throwing 50% tariffs on Brazil and on India for being in BRICS and for trading with Russia. Even though the Americans trade with Russia, like most American uranium, about a significant percentage of the uranium that is utilized in America for all of the reasons you might use uranium comes from Russia, So how's that any different from India buying Russian petroleum,
Yeah. I mean, I think, all great points. And I just want to just pivot here real quick, too, because, again, you hear a lot of negative information on Claudia Sheinbaum, and I hear things like, "Oh, the police are still repressive," and all these other things. And of course, we don't. Yeah, the police, man. I don't know if you know that. I think Mexico is one of those only countries where the police are repressive. But I just want to acknowledge, like, we don't expect a utopia, immediately. But what we do see is way, way more progress than we experience anything here in the United States. And this is something that I just, again, want to help people with context. Please juxtapose what's happening in other countries with what's happening in the United States. Because, of course, there's always going to be holes to poke in arguments. There's always going to be another thing that you can utilize to be like, oh, this country is not doing the things that they should. Again, just juxtapose two countries. So let's do that right now, because here in Washington, D.C., been here for more than half of my life. Wonderful, vibrant, beautiful, amazing city. I'm very proud to be representing, this city in poetry and music and artistry and activism, all those wonderful things. And this is what's been going on. I'm going to show this to you. A lot of very I think shocking things if you don't live in America and you don't see this part of America. Maybe you might think it's just, rosy and rainbows, but this is the reality that is in that we're facing right now, that mainly, Black people, young Black men are experiencing here in the United States. And let's see maybe if this looks like a police state.
I said y'all want to touch niggas. Jack, back up, Jack. Out their face, man. Get out their face. This nigga acting like he about to fight the fan and shit.
Anybody in the podcast, this is probably 10 to 15 officers completely decked out. Body armor, weapons, American flags. This is just in a residential neighborhood, by the way. These are in regular apartments.
Oh, they trying to shoot. Oh, they trying to shoot, man. Oh, my mother, they shoot.
This is the crackdown that Trump is talking about. People walking around neighborhoods at night, literal their own neighborhoods.
Don't need Frank Dog, y'all. Make sure they don't arm Frank Dog. Make sure they do.
We are not strangers to the violence and the intimidation that police utilize, as going as far as using deadly force sometimes. And just your thoughts on that video and just sort of, what we experience here in the United States, especially DC, just with the police force and over policing, I should say.
I was having a great conversation with our panelist, often panelist Macedio, quite recently, who checked in on us. It's like, now it's in DC, from one besieged city to another.
Right. It was in LA, now DC.
Right. And, I said to him exactly what I saw there. I'm like, majority, it's the MPD that's behind this, He's like, same thing, bro. Like, the feds were back there, but it was LAPD that was doing most of the cracking of the head. So, again, we have a Democratic mayor. She's a black woman, all of the identities that you need. She painted Black Lives Matter, on in front of the White House, So why are we behaving in this way? Why are we? Because, again, this is what they do. You know what I'm saying? This is what they do. I just, again, to people, the name ain't just tanky. I'm out there. I've been out there, seen things. Last time a gun was pulled on me, it was definitely law enforcement. Not the first time a gun was pulled on me, but definitely the last time a gun was pulled on me was law enforcement. Was I giving them any reason to think I'm a physical threat? Absolutely not. I was talking in a way that made them feel uncomfortable and quoting United States constitutional regulations, and it pissed them off so much they pulled guns on me. Again, I'm probably only here because there was dozens of cameras, recording this whole moment, live streaming this moment, and that's what we have there. That's the key. I want to remind all of the people that watch this: videotape everything. That doesn't require that much courage. It just requires you to be present in that moment. I want to remind you that the Panthers were driving behind the police, as was their legal right, especially at the time, just to monitor, who shall watch the watchman, right? That was the whole Panthers thing. Just driving behind law enforcement, seeing what they're doing in the hood. People is there already. If you there, you know what I'm saying? Like, the very least thing you can do is continue to document these things, because people act like they gaslight us. Oh, it's not that bad. If you're not doing anything wrong, why do you care? Because it's the fucking police, and they have the right to kill you. And it's not against the law for them to lie to you. You know what I'm saying? And you don't really have any legal recourse to defend yourself. You know what I'm saying? Whatever your civil rights recourse is, whatever like humanity calls you to do, from a legal point of view, you have very little means of recourse against law enforcement. They have the state's monopoly on violence. That means it's expected that they can and will use violence, and that you cannot and will not use violence back against them. You know what I'm saying? So, like, there's no reason to have such provocative acts, especially when all of the power is already in your favor. All of those law enforcement with all of those feds behind them, they were definitely not in a dangerous situation. You were just in the hood with homeboy wearing some tight white shirts. You know what I'm saying? But again, blackness in and of itself is perceived as a threat. So you don't have to do anything but exist to be seen as a threat. I say that as a dude that's been seen as a threat my whole life. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so this is just, again, it's just Trump, promoing, what martial law looks like. Again, he's never seen a thing that a dictator does that he doesn't love. I mean, he looks at Zelensky. Zelensky's a year and a half past his election, still maintaining all of this power. Everybody's out there, all these liberals. Oh, we have to defend Ukraine. Oh, it's like, I thought y'all cared about democracy. Why can't your man have a fucking election? If he got the mandate of the people, and while y'all overlook this, Trump is watching. Trump is taking notes. power is watching, because there are things far more dangerous than the president. The people that pick presidents, they're watching. They're seeing what they can get away with, because everything the empire does outside, they come home and bring inside. And we're seeing it.
Yeah. There's just an incredible history of violence. Police in the United States, the police kill someone, at least one person every single day in the United States. That has continued throughout this year as well. 7 times more likely to be killed if you're a black man in comparison to being white. And the only ratio that's even close is indigenous men, but they're just at a much lower population. So, it is hope that people can see that. Just a reminder again, worry about your own country, worry about the things that happen here. And if you care about black people and you view them as having the same rights as everyone else, I don't understand why you're not outraged about the violence against the black community every single day of your life, if you're in America, at least.
I just want to remind our viewers, Kamala is a lawyer. Obama's a lawyer. Hillary's a lawyer. Why aren't they the ones out there leading the defense for all of these people, out there with the ACLU demanding that certain forms be followed? Why aren't they doing these things? Why isn't there huge pushback in the Democrats? Why isn't this a mobilizing action for them? Because this is their will. This is what they want.
They only care about black people when it comes to, the vote, when it comes to the election time. Other than that, there's no incentive for them, I guess. And it is what it is. I'm going to give a shout out to our podcast listeners. Get to see all the cool videos and stuff that we have on YouTube now. But you can always subscribe to us here on YouTube. We're making our way to that 750 subscriber mark. I'm very excited about that. But you can always check us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Watch, all that good stuff. InnerCityLeft.com. Pick up Fables, Foibles, and Other American Sins. Next week, we are dropping a new song, Blitz Package. And maybe they don't think that we're rappers, you know what I'm saying? That we really can. We've been doing this for a long time. Just because we are highly political individuals who run a broadcast does not mean we don't have a deep love of music and all those things. So check us out. And shout out to our patrons, y'all. We went over 100 patrons this week. We are actually at 101. Shout out Glenn Close and the Dalmatians. We made it at 101. Yes. And we appreciate y'all so much. Budding, wonderful, and lovely community. We appreciate all of y'all. Anything we missed, Tanky? Your thoughts before this weekend pops up? What's going on?
Man, I'm just on pins and needles waiting to see exactly what won't happen with Trump and Putin. Y'all keep your expectations low, man, especially as it relates to Ukraine. If there's any type of agreements, it's probably not going to be Ukraine because there's nothing to agree about. The Russians are winning in a huge way. Only fools no longer believe that. Only fools think that, like what was Zelensky's coked up little speech? Like, Russia has 3 times the artillery, but we destroy 3 times. Stop. That's just not real.
They're 3 times bigger, but we got a gun that's 3 times bigger.
You're getting this shit rocked, man. Ukraine is, Viktor Orban is like, the war is not going on. The war is lost. The war's been lost. Should have never happened.
There it is. For Emoji Little Tanky Summer, I'm Amin TMK. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Peace. System riding to the core. Yeah.
Reppin' Inner City Left.